Well, there's a lot going on in the NFL. Myles Garrett's going to have a hearing Wednesday. He's trying to appeal his suspension, which right now stands at the rest of the regular season, possible playoffs, and indefinite going into next year. How do you think this thing should resolve, potentially maybe being reduced or not? What do you think?
Well, we'll see. Obviously, for the Browns' sake, you want to see that suspension reduced because he's the only guy you got on that defensive line that really can cause a mismatch each and every week against the opposing offensive line. And you got to have a guy like that if you're really trying to push and make a run at something. So they're definitely going to, from the Cleveland Browns' perspective, they're going to want that suspension to be minimized so they can have him back out there and hopefully in some timing to compete and go out there and compete for a playoff spot.
What about the act itself? Former pro athlete, obviously former NFL player. Can you see getting lost in that moment to do what he did, or is it inexcusable?
I think it's inexcusable. It's one of those things to where no matter how red you see or how angry you may get in the moment you get someone else's helmet in your hand, something clicks in your brain, especially when you play football. You know the severity of hitting someone with that helmet, what that can lead to. So the moment you might see red and take it off someone's head, but the moment you hold, you're like, uh-oh, okay, I've gone too far. Let me drop this thing. And then the fact that he took it a step further, I think that's the part that's inexcusable. When he said it himself, he knew it was wrong. He understood that in that moment it was wrong. And I think he's understanding of that and willing to pay the price, whatever that is.
He needed to snap back to reality.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm just so stuck on that whole thing, Victor. Like, how do you get there? Because as an athlete, you're dealing with criticism, trash talk, the whole thing the entire time. So is there a conversation that we should be having about how it escalated there and the role that Mason Rudolph played in this?
Well, absolutely. I think there's definitely a role that Mason Rudolph played in terms of the initial grabbing of the helmet and wanting to take his helmet off initially, and then Myles Garrett responding to that. I think there's something to be said about Mason Rudolph's role in this entire incident. But that doesn't negate what Myles Garrett did initially and then even took it forward to in terms of taking off the helmet and then striking him with the helmet. That was just, it took it overboard. Not to say that Mason Rudolph isn't held accountable or should be held accountable because he started the whole thing.
Absolutely.
But I think where Myles Garrett took it to was uncalled for.
Now, let's talk about your former team. How are you feeling about them coming off the bye week? What do you think they're going to, what do they got to work on? How can they improve their season right now?
Well, they got to work on a lot of things.
I knew that was
a lot
coming.
of things. I mean, but first and foremost, I think they got to figure out how to build some continuity offensively. And I know that's hard all year long with guys injuries at your key positions. Evan Ingram being injured the past couple weeks, kind of facing those injuries. Saquon Barkley with the high ankle a couple weeks ago. It's just been difficult for Daniel Jones to kind of build that continuity with all of his playmakers because everybody's kind of in and out the lineup. Now, what I do like is my guy Darius Slayton out there proving that, okay, guys are gone. I'm going to step up and be a guy that can be held accountable for this team and show my athleticism, my speed, and my ability to make plays and get in the end zone. And those are the bright spots that you like to see in the offense. That's something that you can hang your hat on and build on for years to come.
So there's a number of former athletes that have gone your route and made a career in this space. You're not so far removed. You're still relatively recently retired. How do you toe that line? Do you still feel loyal? Because you literally just said, my guy, Darius Slayton.
Yeah,
do you still feel loyal, or where does it go for you?
It definitely, I mean, that loyalty, it never goes away for me. It's just one of those things that's embedded. I say we still. I got to catch myself because I'm still saying we. But it's just one of those things where you want to see your former team do well because you'd rather talk positively about them in the media as opposed to talking about the negativity and the things that, the ups and downs that you may face in the season and obviously when they're not having a great season this year.
Does that we then also apply to rivals? Now, mind you, I'm a DC girl. Okay. Like, does it come a little extra when you're talking about the division and folks struggling?
If you notice, if we play a Division 4, my voice might raise a little bit, and I might take it to another octave if I need to. But definitely, anytime you got a division game, especially Cowboys, Redskins, and of course the Eagles, you're gonna, I almost feel like I'm in the locker room, like ready to rock and roll already. It's one of those feelings that, Coach Coughlin was great at just getting us ready and making sure we understood who we were playing and why we were playing them and how important these games were week in and week out.
What do you think about this chatter, Victor, about potentially resting Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, that's tough for me. I understand it. I get it. You don't want to, potentially get him injured in a season that probably is pretty meaningless overall for the Giants. But him as a competitor, he doesn't want to leave his teammates out there to dry. He understands that he's a guy that has held accountable for his actions. He's the captain on that football team, and he wants to lead from the front and lead on that football field. And I know that's just him. I know that's the way he feels.
See the face?
I see it. I could feel it. I could feel it.
I hear you on that.
Okay.
But we're in a different climate with athlete empowerment. And it's the same conversation when guys decide to hold out, right? Like, I'm not dealing with another man's money. He got to do what he got to do. Would it not be the same if a guy decided he needed to take a step back for the sake of their health?
I feel like it's the same, but that's a conversation he has to have with himself. Y'all just asked me my opinion, and I'm giving y'all my opinion on what I feel he should do.
I got you. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But I think Saquon has to have a conversation with himself and his family, and if he feels like this is a season that he doesn't want to risk injury and he wants to kind of sit on the sideline and wait the rest of the season out, then so be it. But again, when they want to pay you and extend you, they look at your numbers. And if your numbers ain't there, which they haven't, not that they haven't been there, but in comparison to a year ago, them numbers aren't the same.
Got it.
So I'm sure he wants to continue to put his best foot forward so that when they look at the numbers and it's time for him to be extended, it looks good on that right
Talk to me
hand.
nice. Talk to me
Let's go to another New York team. How you feel about Sam Darnold and the New York Jets? How you feel about him?
Well, I guess they've had some ups and downs throughout the season, and I understand that every team does. And I think this last game coming out and throwing for 400 and a couple touchdowns and kind of getting himself acclimated up against a Redskins team. Sorry about that.
It's cool. I was there.
Sorry,
It's fine.
it just
Don't worry
happened.
about it.
But up against the Redskins team, that's good to see. It's just good to see him feel like a quarterback again. He's not seeing any ghosts. He's out there putting his best foot forward, and I think that's what you want to see if you're a New York Jet fan, if you're Adam Gase and that coaching staff. You want to see him just progress, even though the weapons might not be there or the weapons that he might not, be the most glamorous weapons that he has at his disposal. But he's making the best of it, and I think those guys are responding, especially in this past week.
All right, so Victor, we love having you here. I understand that you do some dancing and it's well documented.
Oh man!
So our guy,
You looking at me?
our captain, did he not tee up this conversation?
Drafted for this? All right, let's go.
Let's see the footwork. I'm gonna get this on Instagram here.
I
Let me
got
get my
some rhythm
camera.
now.
You sure?
I think so. Yeah.
All right.
I gotta get this.
What do you guys think? You think I can do it?
Oh, so you got the phone out. It's already
over here.
All right, you ready?
Vito, what you
I'm
got?
giving you a quick tutorial, okay?
Okay.
So we're just gonna keep it basic and go right. And
Be still, listen.
he's not even getting the instructions.
All right,
It's just,
go ahead, go ahead.
Where's your rhythm?
So look at the feet. Look at the feet.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
going right
Yeah.
and left. Right.
Okay.
And look. There you go. There you go. He's got it.
Touchdown!
Pino, loosen up in here, though, man.
Look,
It's the hips. It's the hips.
He's too stiff
the
up there.
hips.
You gotta move.
I like it. I like it. I'll take
so much for
it.
starting
No
that.
problem, man.
gold.
My pleasure.